a man, who they say he murdered 3. Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. If your taste buds are dead, you don't need the best coffee in the universe. On the other hand, if they are still very much alive, why are you drinking bad coffee? There are 2 kinds of coffee in the world: black water and organic man coffee trike coffee. The choice is yours. 4501 McPherson for the best coffee you can find anywhere. If you can't drive to Organic Man Coffee Trike, you can always treat yourself to the best coffee in the universe by going to organicmancoffeetrike.shop. Now, there is a coffee shop up in Floyd, Virginia called the Blackwater Loft. Now, I like their coffee. They're just kind of a long drive from here. I wonder if they're on .shop or not. I'll have to ask them. Before I get sued by those people, this is just my personal opinion when it comes to coffee. Hey, if you're listening right now, you probably agree with me. Before I get too far along, I wanted to clear up some confusion for folks when it comes to military days. Veterans Day is always observed on November 11th, regardless of what day of the week it might fall on. Veterans Day national ceremony, like most ceremonies, are on that day. They're held on that day for a specific reason. When Veterans Day falls on a weekday, a lot of people will have a celebration on the weekend before or after, but Veterans Day is always November 11th. Armistice Day, which coincides with Remembrance Day and Veterans Day, is commemorated every year on the 11th of November to mark the end of hostilities during World War I. You know, the whole war to end all wars, the Great War. From that day on, there was never going to be any more wars. At least that's what some people thought. The really bizarre thing is on November 12th, Germany kind of started preparing for World War II. It was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918. Don't you know, there was a lot of bloodshed leading up to that particular moment. Lots of generals, you know, the guys hiding in the rear with the gear, wanted to have that last big charge where all their men ran out across no man's land and probably got killed. There was absolutely no reason to send out scouting parties to see where the enemy was, because at 11 o'clock, it wouldn't matter anymore. And yet, lots of scouting parties were sent out to see where the bad guys were, and a lot of those men never made it back. Yeah, the war to end all wars. Veterans Day is when anybody that served in a uniform branch of the military is remembered, thanked, maybe bought a cup of coffee or two, free lunch at certain restaurants, and hopefully a little less crap from the rest of the world. It is appropriate to say Happy Veterans Day, especially seeing as the veteran is alive. Memorial Day. is a federal holiday in the United States for mourning the U.S. military personnel who died while serving in the United States Armed Forces. It is observed the last Monday in May. Memorial Day is a time for visiting cemeteries and memorials to mourn military personnel who died in the line of duty. Our volunteers will place American flags on graves of the military personnel in just about every cemetery, as long as they know that there are military people buried there. The first national observance of Memorial Day was May 30th in 1868. It was known as Decoration Day, and it was observed on May 30th. The holiday was proclaimed by the Commander in Chief John Logan of the Grand Army of the Republic to honor Union soldiers who had died in the American Civil War. This national observance followed many local observations, which were inaugurated between the end of the Civil War and Logan's declaration. The National Cemetery Administration, a division of the Department of Veterans Affairs, credits Mary Ann Williams and the Ladies Memorial Association of Columbus, Georgia, with originating the idea of an annual date to decorate the graves of the Civil War veterans with flowers. Used to be it was just flowers, and now it's flags. The wearing of poppies in honor of American war dead is traditionally done on Memorial Day, not Veterans Day. You see that poppy on Facebook saying, hey, let's spread this around because November 11th is coming up. Well, that's the wrong day. Even though the original poem was kind of done November 11th, it has been transferred to Memorial Day. The practice of wearing poppies takes its origin from a poem in Flanders Field written in 1915 by John McCrae. It is inappropriate to say Happy Memorial Day because it's really a day for the dead. To many folks, this is a day to cook meat and drink too much beer. Keep in mind, this is a memorial service, so you might want to tone it down a bit. You don't, well, I was about to say you don't get together and drink beer at a funeral, but then some people do. I had to really heavily rely on the internet and a few books to put together this show. If I say something about, oh, I don't know, a celebration in Ireland, it's not right, let me know. Don't go postal on me. I have listeners all over the world and try not to put out misinformation. I let the politicians do that. I'm having post Halloween blues. My favorite day has come and gone. Now I have to wait 10.5 months to put all the decorations out again. Add to this, the stores are already playing Christmas music. If I hear that song by Mariah What's Her Name one more time, I'll have to listen to it, but I'll think bad things. Really? Is that the only song people can think of when sending out all those Christmas memes? All Saints' Day, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Living Dead, Halloween, all these special days can get confusing. Arturo suggested I do a show about Day of the Dead, and I figured I'd see about removing some of the mystery and some of the confusion amongst all these different days. The roots of the Day of the Dead celebrated in Mexico among those with Mexican ancestors in the United States, and it's slowly making its way around the world. It's gotten real popular in Japan and places like that, India. Kids come over to the United States to go to college, and then when they go back home, it's like, hey, look what they do on the other side of the planet. This day goes back about 3,000 years to the rituals honoring the dead in pre Columbian Mesoamerica. The Aztecs and other people living in what is now central Mexico held an unusual view about the universe, and they saw death as an integral part of everyday living. It was an ever present part of life, a kind of the yin and yang approach. You can't have light without darkness, you can't have life without death. Upon dying, a person would travel to Chikunamictlan, one of those words, the land of the dead. The road there was akin to the yellow brick road, filled with danger. The dead had to pass through 9 challenging levels. It took several years to get from the grave to Chikunamictlan. Yeah, land of the dead. Much easier to say. Death wasn't even close to being the final act. Once a person's soul finally did reach the land of the dead, they could finally rest in peace. But for a couple of years there, things were not nice. In Nahua rituals honoring the dead, traditionally held in August, family members offered food, water, and tools to aid the deceased on this difficult journey. This inspired modern Day of the Dead practice of leaving food and other offerings on loved ones' graves or setting them on makeshift home altars called ofrendas. In ancient Europe, pagan celebrations of the dead also took place in the fall, and they featured bonfires, dancing, and feasting. Some of these customs survived after the rise of the Roman Catholic Church, which informally absorbed them into observances of the 2 holy days, All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, celebrated on the first 2 days of November. Pagans love to say that the church stole or borrowed their celebrations. Well, it actually goes both ways. Walpurgis Night is a major pagan affair. It takes place 6 months from Halloween. Saint Walpurga was hailed by the Christians of Germany for battling pests, rabies, and whooping cough. I didn't know you had to have a special saint for whooping cough, but there she is. She also battled witchcraft. Christians prayed to God through the intercession of St. Walpurga in order to protect themselves from witchcraft. As St. Walpurga was successful in converting the local population to Christianity. Walpurgis Night is often referred to as the second Halloween by pagans, as it bears a number of similarities to the observance of Samhain, when bonfires are lit and people gather for parties. It also recognized as the thin time, or an in between, when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest, and departed loved ones can return to visit the living, while at the same time one must be on guard against malevolent supernatural forces which can also slip through. In medieval Spain, people would bring wine and pan de animas, or spirit bread, to the graves of the loved ones on All Souls' Day. They covered graves with flowers and lit candles to guide the souls of the dead back to their homes on earth. In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors carried these traditions to the New World, along with some of their darker views on death, which were shaped by the devastation caused by the Black Plague. El Dia de los Muertos is not, as some folks think, a Mexican version of Halloween, though the two holidays share some traditions, including costumes and parades. On the Day of the Dead, it is believed that the border between the spirit world and the physical world dissolves. During this brief period, the souls of the dead awaken and they return to feast, drink, dance, and play music with their loved ones. In turn, the living treat the deceased as honored guests, leaving their favorite food or other offerings at grave sites or on ofrendas built in their homes. Ofrendas are often decorated with candles, bright marigolds, red coxcomb, along with food such as tortillas and fruit. I wonder what the coffee situation is in the other side of the grave. Do they have good coffee over there? I don't want to find out, but I'm just wondering. If you saw the movie Coco, it is about the best representation of the Day of the Dead you can find. The most prominent symbols of the Day of the Dead are calacas, or skeletons, and calaveras, skulls. In the early 20th century, printer and cartoonist Jose Guadalupe Posada featured skeletal figures in his artwork to mock politicians and comment on revolutionary politics. His best known work, La Calavera Catrina, or the Elegant Skull, depicts a female skeleton with makeup, and she's dressed in an elegant outfit with a big hat, a real fancy outfit. The 1910 etching was meant as a critique of Mexicans adopting European fashions over their own heritage and traditions. La Calavera Catrina later became one of the most recognized icons of the Day of the Dead. When Posada first engraved her in 1912, she wasn't even called La Catrina. In the original print, she was Calavera Garbancera, a title used to refer to indigenous peasant women who sold garbanzo beans at the street market. Posada illustrated her in ostentatious attire to satirize the way garbanceras attempted to pass themselves as upper class by powdering their faces and wearing fashionable French attire. Posada died broke and unknown. His illustrations did have an afterlife. His publisher reused them for other broadsides well into the 1920s. Calavera Garbancera got recycled as various other characters, none particularly noteworthy. In the mid 1920s, Posada's work drew the attention of French artist Jean Charlotte, a leading figure in the Mexican Renaissance in the aftermath of the Mexican Revolution. For those of you that don't know it, Mexico was ruled by France for a small period of time, so they have a lot of French influence down there. Charlotte was enamored with the Calavera illustrations that he saw all over Mexico City. He didn't know who had created them. He eventually tracked down Posada's publisher and he began researching the engraver. Charlotte published articles about Posada and introduced the artist's calaveras to other Mexican Renaissance artists and intellectuals. Among the most important were painter Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo's main squeeze, and the critic Francis Tour. In 1930, Tour and Rivera published the first book of Posada's engravings, which sold throughout Mexico and the U.S. In it, La Gabansera made an appearance, but she now had a new name. She was Calavera Katrina. Katrina is a nickname for aristocrats, folks who dress to the nines or they're overly extravagant. Rivera is the man who gave her that name. On April 13th, 1944, thousands of people clashed with the police on the steps of the Art Institute of Chicago, which led to more people being exposed to the Katrina as a form of art. There were riots in front of the art museum, people wanting to get in. You've only got so much room to pass through the front door, and thousands of people were trying to squeeze through a portal only big enough for a few hundred. Go figure. The Day of the Dead is November 1st, but you will sometimes see kids dressed as Katrinas out trick or treating. There is a Katrina contest in Edinburgh, Texas. They have an adult and a children's category. Edinburgh has all kinds of celebrations all year round, every year. I get notices, it's like every 2 or 3 weeks there's a new celebration in Edinburgh. In Laredo, we have Washington's birthday, and that's it. During the Day of the Dead celebrations, people wear skull masks or they have their face painted to look like skulls. They eat sugar candy shaped skulls. The Pan de Animas of Spain's All Souls Day is echoed in Pan de Muerto, bread of the dead. The traditional sweetbread of today's Day of the Dead festival. Other food and drink tied to the holiday include spicy dark chocolate, corn-based beverage atole. Feliz Dia de los Muertos. Yes, I've tried some of these items, but to me they don't taste all that good. I would much rather have coffee than atole. Just that's because I'm a white dude. Of course, I know some white dudes that drink the stuff and like it, but I know some white guys that eat menudo. I can't get it past my lips. It makes me ill. I do make really good enchiladas, tacos, tostadas, things like that, but there's some things I just refuse to even try. In a lot of homes or street corners, you'll find vibrant, colorful altars displaying various religious articles and cultural symbols, including skulls, candles, flowers, and other decorations. Folks go all out putting in their displays. Traditionally, the Day of the Dead was celebrated mostly in rural indigenous areas of Mexico, but beginning in the 1980s, it spread into the cities. UNESCO has recognized the holiday's growing prominence in 2008 when it added Mexico's indigenous festivities dedicated to the dead to its list of intangible cultural heritages of humanity. Boy, do they have to put some big, hard to pronounce titles on things. I have very little, as in zero, use for UNESCO or the UN. The folks who think they should be in charge of the world have formed these organizations not to help people, but to rule them. They're in it for the money and the power. Yet a lot of people think the UN is the thing going to save the planet. No, the UN is there just to make money for the elites. Inspired by the 2015 James Bond film Spectre, which featured a large Day of the Dead parade in Mexico City, the first parade of the holiday was in 2016. In 2017, several major U.S. cities, including Chicago, Los Angeles, San Antonio, Fort Lauderdale, hosted Day of the Dead parades. That same November, Disney and Pixar released the animated blockbuster Coco. $175 million homage to the Mexican tradition, in which a young boy is transported to the land of the dead to reunite with his long lost ancestors. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching. Bon is one of Japan's most important festivals and is celebrated over 3 days in mid August or July, depending on the region. During this day, Japanese people pay respect to their ancestors and loved ones who have passed away through many ceremonies. Oban, sometimes simply called Bon, is a Buddhist festival that celebrates the time when the spirits are able to return to earth and to be with their families. This is a large family holiday, and many Japanese people will travel to their ancestral homes, clean the graves of the passed on, and leave offerings at Buddhist shrines. Although Oban is not an actual public holiday, most people will take a few days off to celebrate. While cleaning the graves, some may talk to their ancestors and update them on events in the family. Things like so and so got married. So and so just had a kid named, oh, I can't think of any Japanese names, but just filling in the dead on day to day life. Traditionally, Oban was celebrated in most regions of Japan from the 13th to the 15th of August. However, in some regions like Okinawa, Tohoku region, Aomori Prefecture, the festival is celebrated in July. This festival is often compared to Mexico's Day of the Dead and China's Hungry Ghost Festival. The idea behind all these holidays is quite similar. Although this holiday may sound a little somber to Westerners, Oban is actually a happy and joyous festival filled with dancing and food and celebrations. The festival starts and ends with a large bonfire, and throughout the holiday, the streets are decorated with lanterns. The first day of Oban is for guiding the spirits home. On this day, people will light paper lanterns and hang them in their homes and on doorways. It's also common to see red and white lanterns decorating the streets of many towns and cities. Families may also carry a lantern with them to the graves of family members in order to help guide them home. There's also a active activity called Bon Odori, a dancing that is performed in parks, gardens, and shrines across the country. The style of folk dance may differ from region to region, but most are accompanied by traditional Japanese taiko drums and are free to watch. I'd be a little disturbed if they had to pay to watch, but oh well. Entire families often spend the day together telling stories about the deceased. How many kids today, especially in the US, know anything about the generations before their grandparents? I know very little about a bunch of dead relatives, but I have been doing some digging. Well, research. No, I'm not digging up graves. I am trying to find out who came before me so I can kind of figure out why I am where I am. The last day of Oban is for guiding the spirits back to the resting places or back to the water, which is where spirits are traditionally believed to reside. During this day, many regions light another bonfire and they hang more lanterns painted with family crests to guide spirits back to their graves. Some regions of the country celebrate a festival called Toro Nagashi on this day, which involves releasing hundreds of floating lanterns over rivers and lakes. These floating lanterns are meant to guide the spirits back to their world. Japan's Halloween boom began in the 1990s when Tokyo Disneyland hosted the first seasonal event. Disneyland Japan's Halloween is a major annual draw. It features Mickey and friends in Halloween costumes, themed parades, and limited edition treats. Seeing as it looks like fun, a lot of the Japanese kids and a few of the adults have gotten in the mood by dressing up in costumes as well. Universal Studios Halloween Horror Night in Osaka, that's where you go if you like the scary stuff. For Halloween Horror Night 2025, the park has expanded its haunted attractions with zombie filled streets, themed mazes, and a horror parade that transforms the park after dark. I should say that has already happened, but Halloween Horror Night drawing crowds seeking Hollywood level horror with a Japanese twist. During the day, the park caters to families with trick or treating and meet and greets with costumed minions and Hello Kitty. As the sun goes down, the heats up. That was bad. Shibuya Halloween in Tokyo, thousands of people gather near the famous Scramble Crossing, turning the neighborhood into a massive street party. It became a global media spectacle, but the chaos also has led to safety concerns. Since 2019, the Shibuya Ward Office has banned public drinking, and they've asked people to stop congregating in the intersection. In a culture that already celebrates cosplay, Halloween provides the perfect excuse for self expression. Events like the Ikebukuro Halloween Cosplay Festival turned Tokyo into an open air costume showcase. Anime, anime, video games, and movie characters fill the streets, drawing tens of thousands of fans. There's Japan's uniquely humorous, mundane Halloween. It encourages participants to dress in everyday people in ordinary situations. For example, person who missed the train, or office worker checking email. Lame costumes, the way I see it. Halloween in Japan is mainly a commercial event. It also connects to deeper cultural themes. Some events incorporate yokai, Japanese traditional ghosts and monsters, or haunted attractions called obaki yashiki. Others coincide with late October harvest festivals or bunka no hi in early November. These blend Western imagery with local seasonal rhythms. Shops and restaurants go all out in marketing. They have pumpkin flavored Kit Kats and unusual coffee drinks. Halloween has become a month long retail bonanza. Train stations display themed decorations, and some small towns even have their own costume contests and parades. Japan's Oban is similar to China's Ghost Festival. They have many similarities. They have similar taboos. They're both traditional festivals, and they're both related to death. However, there are some differences between Oban and China's Ghost Festival. Japan's Oban has fixed dates to celebrate, usually August 13th to 16th. The Chinese Ghost Festival is calculated according to the lunar calendar on the 15th or the 7th lunar month. In Japan, people usually have a vacation, while in China, no holidays are taken for the Ghost Festival. The Obon Festival is influenced by Buddhism. It focuses on ancestor worshiping celebrations. The Chinese Ghost Festival is more influenced by Taoism. It is more focused on worship of ghosts. In China, the main Ghost Festival ceremony is usually held at dusk on one day. People put the family's ancestral tablets and old paintings and photographs on a table and then burn incense to them. People also feast on this night, and they might leave a place open at the table for lost ancestors. Rodanitsa is Russia's day of rejoicing in the Russian Orthodox Church. It is a commemoration of the departed observed on the second Tuesday of Pascha, or Easter, or in some places, such as southwest Russia, on the second Monday of Pascha. In the Ukrainian tradition, it is called Provadi. I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't speak Russian, barely speak English. The Slavs, like many ancient people, had a tradition of visiting family members' graves during the springtime and feasting together with them. After their conversion to Christianity, this custom transferred into the Russian Orthodox Church as the festival of Rodenitsa, the name of which comes from the Slavic word rodost, meaning joy. It may seem strange to call a Memorial Day for the departed joyful, but the Christian belief that lies behind this joy is the remembrance of Jesus' resurrection and the joy and hope that it brings to all. Hopefully, someday these dearly departed will come back and not as zombies. Because of the importance of the last few days of Holy Week, and because of the joy of Jesus' resurrection, the Typicon, the Typicon forbids, as in other festival periods, any special prayers for the departed. The typicon is a Greek word that was adopted by the Holy Church of the East as the title of the book that describes the services, rituals, and Eucharistic celebrations of the Church. Therefore, the first opportunity after Pascha to remember the dead is on the second Monday. Because in Orthodox countries a number of monasteries follow the custom of fasting on Monday, the feast is often celebrated on Tuesday, so that all may partake of the traditional food, one of which is eggs. Eggs are important in their celebrations as well as here in the U.S. The Easter egg. The commemoration of the departed after Pascha is also done in extreme antiquity. About 1700 years ago, St. Ambrose of Milan said in one of his sermons, boy, boy, did they talk funny back then. It is truly meet and right, brethren, that after the celebration of Pascha, which we have celebrated to share our joy with the holy martyrs, and by them as participants in the suffering of the Lord, to announce the glory of the resurrection of the Lord. Yeah, like I said, they talked kind of funny back then. Just like how our All Saints Day is followed by All Souls Day, they have the day to honor their saints, and then the follow up is the day to honor the dearly departed, everybody else, everybody that didn't become a saint. A Saint John Chrysostom also about 1700 years ago, also said in his day, they celebrated a joyful commemoration of the departed on Tuesday of St. Thomas week in his homily on the cemetery and the cross. Although the Typicon does not prescribe any special prayers for the departed on these days, the memorial is kept as a pious occasion. Unlike the various Soul Saturdays throughout the year, there are no changes made to Vespers, Matins, or the Divine Liturgy to reflect this being the Day of the Dead. A Saturday of Souls, or the Soul Saturday, is a day set aside for the commemoration of the dead within the liturgical year of the Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholic churches. A Saturday is traditionally day of prayer for the dead because that was when Christ was in the tomb on a Saturday. On this day after Divine Liturgy, the priest will celebrate the Panacida in the church, after which he will bless the paschal food at the faith that the faithful have brought with them. You take your food to church and have it blessed there instead of just saying a prayer over it at home. The clergy, with incense and candles, will then go in a procession with their big cross, followed by the faithful, to visit the graves of the departed, either in churchyards or in cemeteries. At the graves, paschal hymns are chanted together with the usual litanies for the departed, concluding with the Memory Eternal. Memory Eternal is a liturgical phrase used in Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholic tradition to honor the deceased. The paschal food will then be consumed by friends and relatives of the deceased. It is common to place Easter eggs, the symbol of Christ's coming forth from the tomb, on the graves of the departed, saluting them with the traditional paschal greeting, Christ is risen. This practice is both to remind the faithful of the general resurrection of the dead and to announce the resurrection of Christ to the departed. Now, this is a very different form of an Easter egg hunt. Instead of kids running around picking them up, you've got them going to the dead. Dead eggs, not dead heads. Food traditionally eaten on Rodhanista are funeral koliva, dyed eggs, Easter eggs, kulichi, pancakes. I don't think they use syrup though. Dracchini, honey prinky, and cookies. Now I can go for the pancakes and the cookies, but I don't know about the rest of that stuff. Rodhanista begins the marriage season. Since weddings are forbidden during the Great Lentil Feast, because that time should be devoted to penance and self examination rather than merrymaking, as well as during Bright Week, because at that time they commemorate nothing else except the resurrection. With Rodhanista comes the time for weddings. Men and women traditionally give gifts to their in laws, known as God given family members, and Rodhanista so that joy may be in every house. I think the in laws are the ones came up with that idea. Every few years in the highlands of Madagascar, families reunite during a festival known as Famadihana, which literally means turning of the ancestors' bodies. In Madagascar, people like to spend time with their dead loved ones. In Malagasy, the try that one more time. The Malagasy celebrate this event so that new family members can meet their ancestors and memories can be shared. This practice is the secondary burial, which emerged in the 1820s after the repatriation of soldiers' remains from all over the world. The festival also regained popularity during tomb transfers, when tombs started to be rebuilt using bricks after the introduction of the kiln. Typically, relatives whose deceased ancestors share the same tomb will get together 1 year in advance to discuss the plans for the upcoming Famadihana. The families will discuss dates, expenses, and the guest list. During the ceremony, neighbors and locals from all around are invited to share the Famahanana meal of rice and pork or beef, which is also known as Varabaminaka. Too many vowels in those words. The responsibility falls on the local astrologer who establishes which exact dates between July and September the festival will fall on. Over these 2 or 3 days, the family tomb can be opened. The first day is called Fidriana, or the entry day, and the second day is known as Famasanana, or the wrapping day. Relatives and family members, many of whom haven't seen each other since the last Famadihana, come together to introduce new members, new sons and daughters or in-laws, to the dead. Not just to where they're buried, but to the actual body. For some, Fami Hana, oh boy, Famadihana is the only opportunity in which relatives actually see each other for years. I really must say, I am so glad that we got our form of Day of the Dead from the Aztecs as opposed to the Madagascar people. I would really not want to have a party where dead relatives are carried around. Now, the night is filled with people talking about the dead, playing music, drinking, and preparations for the next day's meal. The men of the family are in charge of killing the animals and preparing the meat. The parts I would throw away are served with rice as dinner for the family members, and the lungs are a special treat for any son in laws. Here's your lungs, sonny boy. Yup. When I got married, there were some traditions that I really wanted to skip, but the crowd kind of forced me into it. The thing about carrying the bridegroom around and throwing him up in the air, every once in a while they drop the guy and, well, falling from 6, 7 feet in the air onto a concrete floor can be painful, if not fatal. But, well, they insisted. Anyway, I was thrown up in the air several times and had absolutely no idea what was going on. Speaking of cake, well, we didn't eat much at the party. All we had was that one slice of cake from the wedding cake, and that was it. Our dinner sat on the table, got cold, and was thrown away, I guess, or maybe somebody else ate it. Speaking of cake, at our wedding, we had a groom's cake. It was kind of shaped like a figure eight, and it was made out of chocolate with chocolate icing, as opposed to that dry, horrible white cake that they insist on having. A yummy, soft chocolate cake with chocolate icing. I saw it there. I paid for it. I know it was there. It was delivered by the baker. It sat on the table right next to that big, tall, multi-tiered white cake. At some point in the evening, it vanished. There are pictures from the wedding where you can see the the groom's cake sitting there, and then all of a sudden you'll notice that it's not sitting there. There's just a blank space on the table. Nobody knows who snuck it away. Nobody knows who ran off with it and sat in a dark corner eating it all by themselves. I hope it tastes pretty good, but it was there and then it wasn't. We still have a big chunk of wedding cake in our freezer. That piece of wedding cake has been in 4 different refrigerators now. As the refrigerators conk out, we take the piece of super dry, super frozen wedding cake and we transfer it from freezer to freezer. Every once in a while, we joke about trying to eat it, but I imagine that thing's probably hard as a rock by now. When the guests arrive for the famahana, they give rice and money to the organizers. The amount of money and the quantity of rice is recorded so that the next time there's one of these celebrations, the next person having to do the celebration, the preparations, will get exactly the same amount in return that he gave the first time. They call it estero con alayo, which means to give something and receive it back. Oh, Everybody that contributes to the feast and then it has to do the feast later on, they're not really out any expenses because they're getting everything back. People in Ireland traditionally believed that on All Souls Day, the souls of the dead would return to their families and speak to people. In the Catholic Church, November 2nd is the commemoration of all the faithful departed, or All Souls Day, a day to commemorate and pray for the souls of those in purgatory, those undergoing purification before they can enter heaven. It was once widely believed that the souls of the dead would return to their families' homes on All Souls' Night, and great care was taken to make sure that they felt welcome. You hear footsteps walking through the dining room in the middle of the night. Oh, that's just your dead uncle come to visit. Celtic nations believed in at certain times of the year the boundaries between the mortal and the unearthly realm broke down, and this was especially true on Halloween, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day. The ancient Irish believed the dead were repository. Almost put the wrong letters in that word. Not an S, an R. Repositories of wisdom. You know the school book depository in Dallas. I always put an R on that word instead of a D, and I did it so often that now I can't not do it. The ancient Irish believed the dead were repositories of wisdom and lore, that during this blessed period they would return to speak to their descendants. During these visits, the ancestors would bestow 2 gifts: the ability to remember old days and traditions, and to hold a deeper understanding of how we are forever linked to our bloodlines. To prepare for the dead's arrival, Irish families would clean the house and light a nice big fire in the fireplace. They would put out a bowl of spring water on the dining room table, and they would place an extra plate and silverware where nobody was going to be sitting. That was where the dead was going to sit. I often wonder, like, if you had a lot of dead relatives, did you have to put several places or just one? Nobody ever says. They just say an extra place at the table. In some parts of Ireland, children would go soul cake acquiring, visiting neighbors to beg for cakes to exchange for prayers to be said for the dead. Uh, Kind of an old fashioned trick or treat, but instead of getting candy, they got cake. Let them eat cake. And then she lost her head. Oh, come on, you must know about Marie Antoinette. When the poor folk said they didn't have any food to eat, she said, let them eat cake. And so the peasants chopped her head off. All Souls Day, the Irish would go to bed early, but before they did, they would visit the cemetery where their loved ones rested. They would clean each grave, say prayers to the departed, and leave a candle lit by the grave. Before they went to bed, they would light a second candle for each of those that had passed. In some cases, the candle would be placed in the window, or in other times on the dining room table. Alternatively, the candle was either left burning all night or it was blown out. It depends on which book you read. When the evening prayers were finished, the family would go to bed, believing that their dead relatives would be there in the morning. The front door to the house would be left unlocked so the dead could get in. Although many of the All Souls Day traditions have died out in Ireland, there are quite a few customs that they still practice. Some of them still practice. In the Philippines, they celebrate Memorial Day, and their traditions include praying novenas for the holy souls and decorating relatives' graves. On the night of November 1st, celebrants go door to door requesting gifts and singing a traditional verse representing the liberation of the holy souls from purgatory. In Hungary, the day is known as, nope, not going to even try that word, Halottaknapja. Just go ahead and try and pronounce that in your head. The Day of the Dead. And a common custom is inviting orphans into the family home, giving them food, clothing, and toys. What did they do the other 364 days of the year? Go hungry? Probably. It is really necessary to have a day to remember the dead. Way back when I was younger, I thought I would remember them any time of the year I wanted. I didn't need a special day. Now, as my memory gets less usable, uh, it's not a bad idea to have a special day to remember these people. Otherwise, you might not remember them. In the movie Coco, the more folks who remember you, the more stuff you had in the afterlife. Ernesto de la Cruz was remembered by everybody because of his song, Remember Me. I'll bet some of you all have that playing in your mind right now. A spoiler, he didn't write it. He stole it from his best friend. Hey, it came out in 2017. You should have seen it by now. You remember that song? Let's all sing it together. Aren't you glad I don't try to sing? In fact, I get money from people not to sing. Remembering people who have died is probably a good idea. If nothing else, it keeps them alive in our minds. If we forget these people, it's kind of like they were never alive. I watch a TV show. Well, it's a YouTube channel, actually. It's called Jesse's Drone Adventures. As the video was ending, another channel popped up called The Desert Drifter. And I watched as Andrew Cross wanders around out in the desert, checking out old cliff dwellings and Indian camps. I like his style. He would find an arrowhead or a piece of pottery and he would hold it up close to the camera so you could see it, you could examine it. He'd turn it over, you could see both sides, and he would tell you what he knew about that artifact. And then he would set it right back down in the exact same place where he found it, in the same, I mean, the same imprint, right where it came from. He would do this every time. Uh, he was always happy, always had a big smile on his face. And I would sit there and I watched the guy doing some incredibly dangerous things, figuring any minute now he's going to step off the edge of that cliff or he's going to meet a mountain lion in one of these dark canyons that he crawls around in. I kept imagining, because he did this alone most of the time. He hardly ever had anybody with him. So he's out in the desert all by himself, climbing around on a cliff. Doesn't even have a safety rope. He was driving home from his last adventure. He stopped at a red light and he was hit by a drunk driver and killed. All the deadly, dangerous things the guy did, I don't even think he ever got hurt, only to be killed by some maniac drunk speeding along, didn't see the red light. It was weird when I discovered this, because the next time I watched Andrew, I was like, but he's dead. I remember him, but it just changed the whole feeling of the show, knowing that he was no longer with us. If you need a special day to remember these people, November 1st, November 2nd, good enough time. If you don't want to remember the dead, well, just think, when you're gone, nobody's going to remember you. Till next Saturday, this is Chris James for Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man who they say he murdered 3? Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.